on air with Bosco Anthony.
You might want to give your intro. You just went up on air again.
Oh,
And
did I
now we're
just go up
live.
on air again? Hi, it's Sean Smith, the blog editor from Social Media Camp, and I am here today with Bosco Anthony, extraordinaire of our last 3 years of Social Media Camp. He has gone on stage for us, or well, actually, this will be his third year. He's gone on stage for us and always delivers an amazing presentation. We are excited to have an interview with him today that we're also going to transcribe into our blog posts on the Social Media Camp website.
Very fancy.
Yeah, it actually makes you sound so impressive. Actually, there's the impressive thing is the fact that you're going into a TED Talk this year at Stanley Park. So we'll get into that as well. But right off the bat, we want to get into your social media talk at Social Media Camp this year. So what are you presenting to us on stage this time?
What am I not presenting this year, Sean, is the bigger question. I'm going to be talking about adaptive content, and I'm going to be talking about the future of storytelling, especially in this day and age of disruption. So we're going to cover micro videos. We're going to cover real-time engagement. We're going to have some case studies. I mean, I typically spend about 80 hours to prepare for a social media camp talk, and my preparation started last year. So I always feel very confident when the projections from last year are actually turning out to actually happen in real time in 2016. I feel like the Nostradamus of social media. And so yes, I'm really looking forward to really talking about some of the case studies we've been working with, talking about social commerce, talking about dark social a little bit as well, and just following the trend. In 2014, I covered digital storytelling. In 2015, I covered integrated campaigns. And so sort of following the track of how content is evolving to micro engagement and adaptive content, and also repurposing of content in multiple technologies and platforms as well is sort of the key area here. As a attendee or small business owner, you're sort of really validated this time because you don't need a big video production budget. You don't need the big bells and whistles to create adaptive content. And the beauty about this is if you were one of the lucky attendees who've been attending the last few talks, which I always surprises me. I always see about 200 people in the audience or more. There's always value and nuggets in what you can do to sort of start this particular adaptive content process within your own brand and business as well.
Indeed, it is true. I mean, having attended both of the talks in the past, to actually see a lot of that stuff come to fruition and in front of us in an ever-changing environment and landscape of social media is the Nostradamus of social media is probably a very apropos. So you brought up the fact that in 2016, we're seeing a lot of changes into how the content is being delivered. What do you see in 2016 moving ahead into, say, 2017 or even 2018 as far as how delivery and what type of content we're going to be taking a look at?
Well, I still think Twitter is going to be alive in 2017, even though they're going through some diverse challenges, as they call it. I think we're going to see brands grow up. It's a really good way of putting it. I think in the last few years there was the hum and haw of, hey, is social media relevant and is social media important? I mean, we've proven every year that marketing and strategy sort of has different spokes or different sort of entities of marketing, and social plays a really growing a role. No other than the validation of Hollywood. And I'm going to give you a great example here. Let's look at the movie Deadpool. I just saw it recently, and it was the highest grossing R-rated movie in Hollywood history, from what I hear. And partially, other than the fact that they came up with authentic storytelling and followed the script like the comic book, they did a lot of work on social media. They basically stayed true to the audience, and most importantly, you'd see Ryan Reynolds in a Deadpool suit breaking the internet every few days with promotions and little nuggets. And I think that really created that anticipation. We're seeing social media validated on the Oscars. We're seeing social media validated in movies and shows, and it's a power of the consumer. We're in the age of the consumer and the audience, and so social media really sort of dwells on that, and it also complements that particular process. So anyone attending social media camp this year is probably going to be interested in learning how to use it well, how to grow their brand through social media, how to build that social media ecosystem. And I'm hoping to deliver some really tangible takeaways where people can actually take that on and really move with it or roll with it, essentially. Right? It's probably Deadpool calling in for me right now. Appreciating the plug-in, I guess.
The joys of having small children that have lots of friends.
Yes, yes.
Now, you had mentioned the Deadpool as having a really strong social media presence this year, which I agree. I mean, Ryan Reynolds really played up the character's social media conversation and created a lot of content that was just completely outside of what Hollywood was used to.
Mm-hmm.
On the opposite end, we also saw Star Wars really pushing their social media presence in this year, but in a kind of a different manner, where there was a lot of enticement about what you might see in the movie, or what you would hope to see in the movie. How much of that is based on, do you think, the existence of the franchise versus the actual excitement over the story of the movie?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. I grew up in the Star Wars era, at least the last one. I'm an '82 baby, so I did watch a lot of Star Wars, and so my favorite character were the Ewoks, basically. And so anyone who it had a stronger following. There was already 6 movies made, and so I don't want to say Star Wars didn't have to try so hard, but they had already won us over, right? So they went with a different content theme, a different pocket, you might say, or a different direction from Deadpool. Deadpool was a comic book. It didn't really have a lot of positive reviews when the character of Deadpool was featured in the X-Men movies, because it wasn't really true to that script. So I guess Deadpool went with a different direction or different pocket that really focused on engagement, really focused on promoting the character and the authenticity of the script, and the opening of the movie, if you've seen it, Sean, was just really cool. You don't have the names are produced by this guy or directed by that guy. There was some humor infused to it. So I think that it just goes to show that storytelling is a beautiful thing, and at the end of the day, different brands or different stories are featured based on that direction. I think that dare I say it, and I hope I don't offend any Star Wars fans. Star Wars had already built something, and it was about them basically delivering the goods and keeping that consistency, whereas in Deadpool had a higher margin to reach to, and really an audience to get to know the brand from a different perspective. Again, watch both movies, big fans of both, and I think everybody loves the robot at the new Star Wars.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about that. I know that, having watched, being a Deadpool fan before the movie franchise, and watching the X-Men version of Deadpool, it's like the only thing that was good about those was Ryan Reynolds. It was great to see that they actually knew enough to bring him back to make the franchise actually work, because he, in his real life, is very much like the character as far as the sarcastic side of things. Do you think that Hollywood is going to embrace this type of concept of movie making and social kind of building together in a relationship in future?
I think so. I mean, if social media can complement ROI, I know I'm saying a sentence here that is not really familiar with most marketing people, but I just put social media and ROI in the same sentence. I know, but yeah, I think it boosted ticket sales. I think it helped the box office, and most importantly, I think social media is definitely here to stand on its own beast. And I think the rise of dark social and data driven decisions, and the rise of e-commerce and social commerce, and the rise of social traffic and social engagement, and the fact that we can actually measure that accurately is just going to make social media smarter. I think it's been getting smarter for the last 3 years, and I think it's got it still has some more features to develop. I'd like to see social media segmentation at its best. I'd like to see email marketing on social media. I'd like to see broadcasting in a customized fashion through social media at some point too. But is social media still amateur? I don't think so. Is social media integrated with marketing? Perhaps. I think there's still some areas to go, but I think that social media is definitely delivering. I think the key word here is that it's authenticated as an approach or a marketing approach, and we're seeing results through it as well.
Are you still seeing? Because I know that I see it myself, but are you still seeing a number of the brands that are still siloing their social media from their traditional marketing streams, be it magazine, print, radio, television?
I mean, it's all combined. Direct marketing is still existing. I work with brands that still do it, but they do it smarter. They target more customized, instead of cold leads or mass distribution. They're really focusing on more of a clinical approach that's integrated with social, or they'll use a hashtag, or they'll use a platform on the marketing pieces. We're seeing social media embedded with advertising. We're seeing it embedded with email marketing, blogging. I mean, in some ways, this Google Hangout on air, which is basically being broadcasted right into YouTube, is a perfect example of content distribution. I mean, not many people are familiar with this Hangout feature, which is why I wanted to use it. I like talking or sharing different entities that are sort of really true to my presentation about adaptive content. We're giving the power now to people, and we're getting them to become storytellers, and we're giving them the tools to become better storytellers. So I'm looking forward to this interview. I'm looking forward to the Blab interview we've got coming up next week. And every week now, we're basically starting to create that adaptive content preparation for that key delivery at Social Media Camp.
Well, now you're definitely seeing the move towards the streaming video, live video,
right?
YouTube content, and so on. What's the thing that attracts you the most about the video style content, where it's live, it's in person type of deal? What do you find is the most engaging part of this?
Well, I think it's the audience, for one. I think the beauty of allowing the audience to sort of peek in and join in the conversation is really perfect for me, and I think that's the best element to this. But really, we had social platforms, the Facebooks and Twitters, and now we're having these micro channels, and they're sort of going through the same evolution stage to Facebook and Twitter. So at some point, Blab's going to have to start to figure out how to monetize it. At some point, Periscope and all these different entities are going to start to figure out a commercial aspect. But they're basically at its birth, and there's so much live streaming and live broadcasting that the thing that really excites me is the user-generated content and the volume of it. Now, the disadvantage of that is we're basically also creating this problem where we're going to end up really overwhelming our audience with a plethora of content. And so the key element for us as storytellers is how do you distribute it in a simple, easy, understandable way? How do you reference it? And then how do you utilize it? So I think the one thing that we all can learn is the utility of these fun items. That it's us little kids in that candy store really admiring that new fresh candy, and then the question is, how do we actually take that knowledge and then make it more receptive to the audience so they don't feel overwhelmed? And I think that's going to be the key of distribution moving forward, is creating value so that the audience can understand that value and prioritize that value over the plethora of white noise. And that's going to be for me, that's exciting, because that creates an opportunity for storytellers like myself to help brands educate them on how to distribute that story effectively.
Do you see traditional media being able to find its place in here? I know that in our recent, in one of the most recent blog posts for the Social Media Camp blog, there was a discussion about newspapers and where they fit in the 21st century. In British Columbia, we're looking at, since 2010, there were 36 newspapers, local daily newspapers running. Now there's only 13, and they're losing that market to this environment. Do you see them being able to find their place in it and maybe find that revenue stream?
I think I'm going to answer that question with 3 takeaways. The first thing is the people behind the newspapers need to start becoming digital rebels and natives in some ways. And so what that means is they need to focus on a digital readership. They need to focus on embracing the aspect of digital, because I think it can only complement. The second thing is some people still read a paper. They find it refreshing. Believe it or not, even though I'm a millennial and I suffer from millennial attention disorder, some of the most mindful moments for me are when I'm sitting down having a cup of coffee, actually reading a paper with news that is 3 days old. There's some concept that still interests me in that sort of case. But the third element is you have to change your ways. So, real-time advice for people who have news syndication through papers is, survey your readership. Find out how many of them still want to receive that information via newspaper. Do others want to receive it on their cell phone? Do others want to read it online? Van City Buzz is a perfect rebel in that particular case. They started off as a blog and look where they are now. And New York Times too. I mean, they've got it figured out in some ways because they've created this whole exclusive membership, the tablet access, and allowed advertising to sort of happen on their actual real estate digitally. So can you capitalize on advertising through digital? Absolutely. Can you focus on promoting brands and businesses through digital? Absolutely. There are brands right now who are lining up to give their advertising budget on digital native platforms and linking and everything else. So I think the newspaper area has to sort of not get smarter, but get really get in touch with how digital advertising is working and then find ways to embrace that. So maybe it's a hyperlink, or maybe it's a banner after an article that goes to a landing page or a product, or maybe it's working with the actual audience and then getting them to create that sort of sponsored editorial post. So I think the to answer your question in a short sentence is, it really, the power is still with them in the sense that they have the power to adapt. They have the power to embrace, and most importantly, they have the power to implement. And if we can see that shift, we will see a different type of content syndication, a different type of news reading. At the end of the day, journalism is still sexy. Journalism is still something that we read. I still spend an hour a day researching great content. So that's not going anywhere. But the platforms and how we use it, that's going to evolve.
It's exciting times we lead.
Yes.
I can't help but think, may you live in interesting times, may have a spin on it that's less negative.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your TED Talk in Stanley Park this year. I mean, that's a pretty epic leap for anybody who's got a stage presence and has done speaking before, to be invited to speak at a TED Talk.
It's the most exciting time for me right now. I've got, works in publishing a book. We've been really nurturing that. We've been getting a lot of requests to speak at some really incredible conferences. But for me, the bucket list was to have a TED Talk. And I really discovered TED through speaking. A lot of people, my audience, had come up to me and said, we really like your content, or we really think you could be a potential TED speaker. But nothing prepares you for TED, So TEDx Stanley Park is happening on May 28th. I applied last year. I've already spent, probably about 80 hours in prep, and I've probably got another 100 hours to go through in rehearsals and media interviews and getting ready for the big day. But it's the most humbling experience I've had. You get coaches. They really focus on the quality of content, making sure that you're following the TEDx or the TED guidelines. And it's really hours spent to deliver perfection. And for me, I've done over 125 different talks in digital formats. This is probably going to be the most challenging and rewarding experience for me, because I don't have any props. I don't have any videos. I don't have any crazy trending, breaking, sort of things. And I'm going with a talk that has nothing to do with digital. My talk's about helping people who feel stuck, and also turning their life from average to epic. So I'm going with a more meaningful talk that really hits home, and it's basically allowing people to really project their life based on how they want architected. So I'm really excited for this. I got a few runs of my script. At this point, it's created and they're happy with it, and now we sort of have to memorize it and deliver it. So we've got a few more months, but it's a humbling experience, and I have to say, after this particular experience, I'm probably going to write a piece about everything I've experienced as a TEDx speaker. But yes, the announcement is going to be happening in next week. So somewhere around the 16th is when they officially announce it, and my profile goes up on the TEDx page. But you guys get the exclusive scoop first. So yeah,
That's very exciting, because you're going to be our first TEDx speaker. We've had folks from TEDx attend Social Media Camp in the past, just as attendees and advertising TEDx Victoria and so on. But you're going to be our first speaker who's actually been on the TEDx stage.
It's a first. It's a first for me in many ways. But I mean, the good news about Social Media Camp is they're diverse. They are very creative in bringing different speakers, and they do a really good job of taking care of the audience. It's one of my most favorite conferences as well. So I'm going to be at Social Media Camp, and then a few weeks later I'm going to be speaking at TEDx. So it's going to be a crazy ride, I have to say.
It's definitely something that we're looking forward to sharing with our audience, for sure. So going into Social Media Camp, what are the things that you like the most about our event? I mean, we're going into our 7th year now,
right?
Which we're really excited about, because we're getting that closer to that first decade of completion, and we find that the city of Victoria has been very helpful, and it makes a great location. But what are the things that draw you to coming back? This is going to be your 3rd year on our stage.
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, it's I just realized I've spoken 3 years in a row. So either at some point you guys are going to get bored of what I have to say, or I just have too much to say. I don't know. No, I think I'm really, I think I'm excited this year, because I'm seeing social media break so many different barriers, and growing and evolving. I was there last year, and I was there the year before, and it's getting more popular. It's getting more traction. Businesses locally, the city of Victoria, everyone's embracing this particular area. But from an audience perspective, you couldn't attend a conference this year's conference is going to be even better than last year's conference, because you've got such a diverse plethora of speakers, and everyone has a unique message that could aid you with your social media presence. From a sponsor perspective, you're going to get the best value this year around as well, because we're really creative with how we work with our sponsors as well, from what I see. And from a speaker perspective, great networking opportunities, great opportunity to meet various audience members. I love coming back because of the experience. And last year, I would say the experience, in the 125 conferences that I've done, last year's experience was the most unique, most memorable, and for me, the most pleasant one. So out of all the conferences I've had globally, I would say Social Media Camp's right up there. And the reason why was because they really focused on everybody's experience, whether you're a speaker, sponsor, or attendee. And so, I think that the content, when you have a conference that really nails the content, nails the speakers, nails the networking opportunities, nails the sponsorship, and just really aligns it together, you have a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I think that that's really what's impressed me so much about Social Media Camp. I can't speak highly about it, and it's only got room to get even bigger. I mean, Sean, you and I were both speakers in 2014. And we were the most engaged social profile speakers in 2014. I still have that, little poster that reminds me that Sean was my nemesis. And last year we were also some of the most engaged speakers as well on social, and we've both seen it grow. I mean, you've experienced a wonderful thing being on that side of the camp.
Yeah, well, this is going to be my 7th. I started out as an attendee at the very first one, back when Scott Stratton was our first keynote. And I just worked my way up to being the blog editor and the head coach again for the 4th year.
Your T-shirt says it too.
The T-shirt says it all too. Yeah, I mean, when you start wearing the garb, you're no longer just an attendee.
Yes.
But we've found that our social presence has grown quite a bit due to the fact that our speakers, such as yourself, have been such great proponents for what we're doing, and the stories that they have been able to. Because Steve Dotto, for instance,
right,
finding his place in the social sphere after speaking one time at Social Media Camp, and the networking that he did with Mari Smith and Sue Zimmerman and Vivica von Rosen and all the other speakers that we've had as our alumni. It's been a great experience for us to have you as part of our show. But Social Media Camp is not without its errors. So in in the social media space, when we're talking about our online conversation and our online engagement, what do you think, as somebody who spends a lot of time in that space, what do you think are some of the things that people should be avoiding when they're talking in the social media sphere?
That's a great question, and I've covered over 82 different marketing verticals. It's insane how many industries I've been a part of in the last 7 to 8 years. And every year I find myself, I'm like, okay, I think I've covered almost every industry, and they're like, no, here's a few more, right? But the first thing about social media that most brands don't get it right is alignment in messaging with your values and your purpose. So message authenticity, content authenticity is so important. And I find so many brands faking it or staging it. Let me give you an example. For example, let's look at realtors. Very competitive market. It's almost like a sushi box of realtors. There's a realtor in every block, basically. And now there's a realtor in every building because there's so many. And they're all saying the same thing. They're all, how do you make a product that, it's the most important purchase decision of one's life and make that interesting and engaging? Yet maybe 1% of those realtors actually know how to present their message right. So, for me, when I'm working with them on storytelling, rather than, a realtor telling us how great they are, I'll interview some of their clients. I'll actually bring their clients on a video set and actually interview them with questions, and then turn that into a testimonial video so that you can hear from the eyes of the actual person why this realtor stands out. It's the little things. I worked with a Catholic school last year, and they had no image repository, they had no videos, they had nothing, and we spent 3 months basically filming, photographing, and building this entire catalog of thousands of pictures. I'm going to actually be showcasing this year as a case study of how we actually got them to embrace social and how they started seeing results, and they've become so digital that they're actually getting a lot of traction. So I've worked with local businesses, I've worked with local brands, I've worked with international brands. The bottom line is authenticity is so important, and nothing speaks authenticity than the people that represent the brand. So that's the first thing. And I think a lot of people get that wrong in some cases. The second thing is not having a budget for social media. Believe it or not, social media is marketing, and we're no longer in the organic age of social media. We're in advertising or the paid age of social media. So we need, if you're going to invest in postcards, you're going to invest in a magazine flyer or banner, you got to invest in social media, and you got to invest in content, and you got to invest in the people that represent the brand. So I think that that's really important. I would say that that's another issue. I'm sure you hear this all the time. Love to do social, don't have a budget. Do you know what I mean? Or love to do social, I don't know how much I should spend on social. Do you know what I mean? So those are the two key areas. And then the third element is making sure that there's internal communication. I find this is the biggest challenge that I have to face or embrace every single day. It's the alignment of the people on the front lines with the people in management or the owners of a business. And that key alignment from start to finish. The front of the house needs to be aligned with the back of the house. All social media platforms need to be part of the ecosphere. You can't have one rogue platform on its own that you haven't updated unless you don't have a use for it. But at the end of the day, creating that connection and integration is so important moving forward. And it's all about that user experience, right? So clarity is so important. And I find this where someone will get a marketing piece that's not correlated with their social representation, and you leave the audience just confused. It's like me going to Google to look up a business time or a show time for a movie, and I can't find it. It's so frustrating, right? So I think that communication, alignment of messaging and authenticity, and budgets, those are three things that we need to address moving forward to have an even unique operation when it comes to social media.
I empathize. I empathize.
Challenges we face every day.
Just car dealers are almost the bane of my existence, because you see one car dealer does it this way, and then within a couple of months, they're all doing it the same way. The originality aspect disappears in such short order. It's interesting that you bring up education side of things in working with a school, because I've moved into teaching social media in high schools, and that actually kind of brings me to the question of the next generation. We have an entire generation that is literally in front of us that has never seen a world without social. Do you see the that generation being able to change how businesses and marketers engage in social by their own presence, or do you see it happening the other way around, where the brands and the marketers are going to change that generation's use of social?
Well, I think it's going to be both. I think we are seeing a growing digital audience where content is dictated based on that audience. The reason why we landed in micro adaptive content or short engagement content is because our audience today doesn't have a very long attention span. Everything is bite size. So I think in some ways our audience is dictating how we present our message. The concepts of marketing are still the same. However, the way our audience consumes that marketing content has evolved. So in some ways, I think we're always going to be dictated by the people that review or read our content. I think there's also going to be a shift where we are going to have to be challenged to come up with even more engaging content in bite-sized formation. But I think it's sort of this sort of adaptive ecosystem where it's a bit of both. I think that the kids have something to learn from us as well about staying authentic, about having a safety experience when browsing the web, especially now with cyberbullying and all the other things that are going on. And what you put out there is so important in how it represents you. I mean, you need to be able to look after your reputation online. So I think from that perspective, we have certainly a role to play to help educate the masses on, hey, that photograph of you that's pretty revealing and it's going to haunt you 10 years from now, maybe don't put it up on social. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's sort of our responsibility, and I call that social responsibility of anyone out there mentoring the generation of today. But I think we're also going to have to learn from the generation of today. I think the reason why Vine and Snapchat and Periscope and Meerkat, all of these elements really got created was because of how we consume content. So I think it's a balance. I think it's what we call a social dependency between this generation and the future generation, and it can only be bridged and really infused if both parties come together. So I think that it's definitely an exciting time to be someone from this year's generation. There's so much out there, and I think what we're also doing is we're pioneering a trail of benchmarks and milestones along the way. At some point, Sean, someone 50 years from now is probably going to look at you and I and say, remember these two relics? Remember what they did on social media? Well, I think that's going to happen at some point too.
God, as I come this much closer to 50, I'm already feeling like a relic.
But you're having fun. That's the most important thing.
I am actually. It's since I've kind of made my shift from coaching businesses to educating this new generation of social users. I don't think I have felt better about the work that I am doing. I mean, there's so many people in this space. To find your niche in that space of educating adults and businesses and corporations and so on is really difficult. My space, I'm it. I'm the only one who's teaching it in a different way. So I've discovered my own personal value in the space that I've spent a decade in. So, which leads us into the last piece with the conference coming up, with Social Media Camp coming up in May, and of course other conferences happening all around the world. I know that the Social Media Summit in Ireland was a huge success this year as it launched its very first episode. What do you think are going to be some of the best takeaways from a conference, or how does a person actually get real value out of a conference that they attend, Social Media Camp or otherwise?
Well, let's cover it in three different realms. So we'll cover it from the speaker realm, from the sponsor realm, and also from the attendees realm. So let's start off with the attendees. I think the attendees are basically sitting there with liquid gold all around them. So it's about scooping it up. And here are a few areas where I think we're going to see the attendees really capitalize and leverage their experience at social media camp. So the first thing is, as long as Twitter is still there, and again, I'm a big fan of Twitter, capitalize on the hashtag, right? You're not going to be at every talk. You're not going to be at every breakout session, but the hashtag basically is sort of this digital archive that basically captures the sound bites, captures every Bosco quote that everyone loves or was shocked that I actually said, or any other speaker. So, I, as a speaker, I go on the hashtag and I engage with the audience. I think what really created this sort of Bosco experience at Social Media Camp was the fact that the day before Social Media Camp, I started getting on the hashtag and started engaging with everybody. And people were surprised because we're sort of, speakers are typically these people that hide in a green room, show up on stage, do their thing, and head out, right? And so to actually see speakers care about the brand and actually have a conversation, that's what social should be all about. So, your speakers are going to be on social, your attendees are going to be on social, and your content's going to be on social. So capitalize on the hashtag, which I'm sure you're going to share with the audience as far as what the hashtag is, and that itself is going to cover you as far as content is concerned. Capitalize on the networking events. So, if there's a networking event or an opportunity for you to meet with the speaker, don't be shy, get out there. And I got to say, the people of Victoria are so awesome. They're great at embracing the speakers. We have a great time. We love talking to people. But you know what? We're also past that stage of, oh, should I go approach that speaker? I find that sort of experience where people are almost surprised when they engage with me and they see how opening I'm with them and how, how sharing I'm with my resources. All you got to do is come up and say hello and introduce yourself and tell us what you do and what your biggest challenges are. And that's why we're there. So, I think that sort of celebrity effect of a speaker shouldn't really exist, because at the end of the day, unlike the Oscars, we're actually, we care regardless of what's going on.
You're someplace other than the red carpet.
Exactly. And we do our best to actually get out of that sort of limelight and actually dwell into the actual, native land, as they call it. So take advantage of the networking events, take advantage of every opportunity you have with the speaker. And at the same time, follow up. So if you've got 50 questions, pick one that you want to build a relationship with, grab a business card. Here is the one biggest mistake that most people do when they attend Social Media Camp. They grab a speaker business card, they plan to follow up, and they don't. Almost 50% of people that take my cards either don't follow up or follow up 6 months later, right? So, start writing on people's cards what notes you want to do. And, that Monday after Social Media Camp, a Sunday, just start, engaging with people, whether it's on social media or following them. So these 3 tips, I think, are the most important to improve the experience. And then you've got coaches, mentors, Sean, I think you're leading up a bunch of mentors and coaches as well that will sort of help people with that sort of experience in social media. Capitalize on it. If you're a first-time person, get yourself out there. I remember my first experience at social media. I didn't really know anyone. I didn't know you. I didn't know anybody. And so my experience was so different. And then last year, it changed because all of a sudden those relationships started growing and we started sort of making a follow-up, and you decided to go viral with BC Ferries. So, let's be honest, we really just grow. And if you plan on coming back, it almost starts to become a family. From a speaker perspective, I think it's important for speakers it's their responsibility. Okay, this is me setting the norm here. It's their responsibility to engage on social media, use the hashtag, converse with people. I think it's our responsibility to network and follow up when people are reaching out to us. But from an experience perspective, last year was amazing. Vicky was a rock star. She organizes some great speaker lunches and dinners, and I got to network with other fellow speakers in the green room and just really hang out. I'm even thinking about coming in either on the Thursday or the Friday morning and really just, even though I'm speaking on Saturday, I just want to really soak it in and have fun with the speakers as well. I'm really looking forward to some of the speakers as well. And the experience from a speaker perspective is just different, and I think that it's important for the speakers to realize that there's so much potential provided we engage. So we engage socially, we engage in person, and we network. And I've seen great even profits from social media camp from a perspective of people looking to consult with with my what I have to say, and it's a great conference for speakers as well. And from a sponsor perspective, it's only going to get bigger, better, and faster. I think that we're hearing talks about sponsors actually co-hosting networking events. It doesn't get better than that. I mean, who cares about the swag that people will just chuck out? Who cares about the bottle opener or, that 1950 Mad Men approach of what sponsorship should look like? Sponsorship right now is all about engagement and people. So if you're a sponsor and you find a way to engage with your audience, you find a way to get them to wear your brand, talk about your brand, or actually remember your brand through activity, you've actually nailed it. And I think the best example was last year's, one of the sponsors from last year was Tradable Bits. They brought their platform to social media. They got us engaging on it. They got us, all the speakers, competing to see who was the most socially engaged speaker. They basically got us to try out their product, and I hear they're doing something this year that's just as engaging.
We are excited to have Tradable Bits back again this year as one of our key sponsors, with not only with their platform but also potentially hosting a VIP event at one of the local Victoria businesses,
right,
where we have the opportunity to not only engage with some of our audience, but also engage with the speakers themselves. That has been one of the most popular parts of social media camp in the past. Is the feedback that we've gotten from our audience is the fact that the speakers were accessible.
Yeah,
that coaches themselves made that sort of thing happen, which is great.
Yeah, and even sponsors like Helijet. I mean, I got to fly Helijet for the first time last year, and what a great experience. The service at Helijet is phenomenal. The people that represent and work for the brand are phenomenal. And just that experience of flying to Victoria was just breathtaking. I mean, maybe the weather was great too. That also helps. And then, also having the transportation company pick up the speakers as well. And if I'm doing business in Victoria, I would certainly use those businesses because the experience was amazing. I was talking to the driver that picked me up at social media camp, get a bottle of water for me when I got off the plane or the flight. And that overall sponsorship experience really should go beyond the native tradition way of sponsorship. And so if you're a sponsor for social media camp moving into 2016 or beyond, focus on the experience as opposed to the advertising.
Excellent. Bosco, I'm not going to take up much more of your time. It is a Sunday, so it's a good opportunity to rest before the chaos begins again. Where can people find you online?
That's an easy question. Essentially, I'm Bosco Anthony on everything. So you can find me on Twitter, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on my website, email as well. Everything is Bosco Anthony. So for now, I would recommend everyone to hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. Those are sort of my the Twitter is more official. Instagram is completely not digital. It's food and it's waffle Sundays and it's the stuff that I love outside of digital. So yeah, I mean, if you want to know me personally, follow me on Instagram. And if you want to know me a little bit more professionally, you could also engage with me on Twitter as well and Facebook as well. I'm on social. Believe it or not, I'm on social.
Now, you've got your TED Talk coming up on May 28th. Where can people find information about that?
So they're going to be making the announcement very soon on the TEDx Stanley Park website. And there's going to be a special code for anyone wanting to go to see the TEDx event. So they're going to give me a special code as well. My recommendation is reach out to me directly, and I would be happy to send you the promotional code as well as the link to sign up for the event as well. So all they got to do is just say, hey, caught this interview with Sean Smith or social media camp, and I'll be happy to send that out to them individually as well, and we can take it from there. But they can also just go through the website as well, the TEDx Stanley Park website. I believe Air Canada is the major sponsor for the event, and it's at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre. They have a seating plan of over 2,400 seats. They've already sold a really good portion of that, so I think that it's going to be a sold out event, so I wouldn't wait. But yeah, definitely reach out to me either at Twitter and just say, hey, caught the interview, would love a discount code, and I'd be happy to help them out.
Nothing like a video with a cookie.
Absolutely.
Now, as Social Media Camp is coming up, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to visit socialmediacamp.ca. Look in the speaker section, and you'll find Bosco Anthony there amongst some of our great speakers. We have Mitch Joel, Tara Hunt, and Jesse Brown. Jesse Brown, who broke the Jian Gomeshi story, is actually going to be one of our guests, our keynotes this year. He, of course, is the host and founder of Canada Land, which is an amazing podcast. And, of course, we've got our returning people like Sue Zimmerman, Steve Dotto, and Vivica Von Rosen, and, of course, Bosco Anthony. Bosco, thanks very much for your time today. It's greatly appreciated. Be sure to look for us on the blog coming up very soon.
Thanks, Sean. I look forward to speaking with you guys I think I'm speaking on Saturday morning, so I would definitely say come out and check the talk out. I've got some crazy videos. If you think last year was crazy, this year is even going to be even more crazier.
So I hear it. I'm looking forward to seeing it. Hashtag is smcamp.ca. See, I need one more cup of coffee to get this right. The hashtag is smcamp. And so if you want to make sure you follow that on Twitter, Bosco will be all over that one. And I'm getting you this year, buddy.
I will stalk you on social. That's what I'm going to say.
Bosco, thanks again for your time, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man. We'll chat soon.
Cheers.